For our brown sugar bourbon chicken, you are going to need your chicken cutlets, some potatoes, a lemon, sour cream, a clove of garlic, your brown sugar bourbon seasoning, chicken stock concentrate, green beans, an apple, and a scallion. And then you're going to need about a teaspoon of sugar, salt and pepper, and some oil. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with my potatoes. I'm going to cut them in half first just because it's easy to work with a flat surface. And then we're just going to cut these into like 1/2-inch cubes. So make sure that you've washed and dried them. You can peel them if you want to, but Yukon Gold potatoes really don't need to be peeled because the skin is so thin. So we're just going to go ahead and do this with all of the potatoes into about a 1/2-inch dice, making sure that your dices are pretty consistent so that they all cook evenly, so that some aren't done and turn to mush right away while some are still really hard. So I have my potatoes all diced up and I've covered them with water, and I'm gonna go ahead and give this water a good salting. And then we're gonna take our clove of garlic and give it a good smash to get the paper off. It's not gonna want to come off. And we're gonna put it in just like this, because as it cooks in that liquid, it's gonna infuse the potatoes with like the garlic flavor. And then on top of that, it's gonna get nice and soft and you'll be able to mash it with your potatoes. So these are gonna get cooked for about 20 minutes until they're fork tender. And you're just like when you're cooking pasta, you're gonna wanna save some of that potato water. So moving on to my green beans, you are just going to grab a big pile of them and see how some of them, oh, and I just dropped that one. Goodbye, green bean. See how some of them are much larger, so we probably will trim some of the bigger ones up. I'm gonna lose more. So I am just grabbing them into a pile, and then I take my knife and I push all the edges like so, and I just slightly trim. And then I do that again on this other side. So just push it all up against the knife and trim, and you're just gonna do that with all your green beans. So my oven has been preheating to 425 degrees. As you can see, I cut a lot of the green beans in half. Some of them that were already pretty small, I left as is. And these are just gonna get a drizzle of olive oil and then some salt and pepper. Oh, I need to refill my pepper mill. Some salt. And then just give it a good toss so that they're all coated in the salt and pepper and oil. Shake it all out. And these are gonna go into the top rack of your 425 degree oven for about 12 to 15 minutes. Next, I'm gonna prep the rest of my ingredients. So I'm going to zest my lemon, and I'm only gonna do that colored part. You don't wanna get too far into the white part because that is very bitter. If you don't have a microplane, you can use the smaller holes of a grater, or you can use a vegetable peeler and peel away some of the zest and then just finely mince it up. You want to make sure you get all that zest. Now I'm just going to go ahead and quarter this lemon. So now my lemon is done, and now we are going to dice up our apple. So I kind of have a bad part of an apple. Let's see. This is how I like to cut an apple, so that you cut around the core instead of cutting it in half. I just keep cutting it and turning it so that you're just left with like a square 4 at the end. Like so, see? And so all the seeds, there's no seeds in there. It's good. So this is the one that was like bad. So I'm gonna like chop that off. And so we're looking for like, I'm gonna get rid of that. If you've got a bad spot, you can get rid of it too. So for our apples, we're going to do like 1/4 inch pieces. So kind of fairly small like so. More like a salsa type size. So with these ones, I'm gonna take these and kind of just stack that in half, then cut it in half again. I'm just gonna go ahead and do this with the rest of my apple until it's all diced up. So now for our green onion, I'm gonna start by cutting off the root. And then we're gonna separate the whites and the greens. And really the whites kind of come up here where it's still pale green. And you see it's still fairly solid as opposed to a little bit more hollow. So these I'm just gonna go ahead and dice up. It is being difficult right now. Okay, so those are my whites. And it just rolled away. I tried to save it and then it rolled away. And actually, because that is still a little bit not hollow, I'm gonna kind of slice a little bit more off until I see a bit more of a hollow. More like that. And now I just dropped more green onion. Y'all, I'm not making it today. And then the rest of the green onion is for garnish. So I'm actually gonna cut this at a bias. So you can do this 2 ways. You can turn your knife like this, or you can turn your green onion and then still just kind of cut straight. So these are gonna be more like long strips. But again, feel free, this is our garnish, so feel free to cut however your heart desires. I'm just showing you a different way of differentiating and making your garnish look a little bit fancier. I've taken my chicken out of the, packaging, sorry. And I put it on a paper towel, and then I even patted the top of it down. As you can see, it's not like super, super shiny anymore. So we're just gonna go ahead and season these with salt and pepper. I like to season just one side, and then I season the other side once it goes into the pan. Let's see if this grinder has a little bit more pepper in it. Not really. And then you're gonna add the brown sugar bourbon seasoning. So don't do it all on this half. We'll wanna save some for the other side. And then I have my pan heating up right there. I should also mention that I forgot in the ingredients list that you'll need 2 tablespoons of butter. And so I grabbed that. All right, there's my pan. So we're gonna go ahead and heat a drizzle of oil in there. And we're gonna add our chicken, the seasoned side down. And sprinkle all that in there. And then we're gonna go ahead and salt and pepper this side. And some salt. And then you're gonna add the rest of the bourbon brown sugar spice mixture. And then these are gonna cook for about 5 to 7 minutes per side. Chicken should get cooked to an internal temperature of at least 160 degrees. And that's when you can pull it off the heat. It should be fully cooked at 165. But if you pull it at 160, it's called carryover cooking, and it's gonna continue to cook, you know, after you pull it off the heat. It doesn't instantly start to cool down. So 5 to 7 minutes per side. Green beans roasting and mashed potatoes are boiled. So my chicken has been cooking for about 5 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and give that a good flip. And that burning is just kind of some of the sugar from that bourbon brown sugar sauce. So I'll turn the heat down just a little bit. And then I'm gonna go ahead, my potatoes are done, but before I drain them, I'm gonna get some of that potato water and no potatoes. And then I'm gonna go ahead and strain my potatoes. While my chicken finishes up, I'm gonna go ahead and make my mashed potatoes. I'm gonna add the contents of this sour cream. And then we are just gonna take 1 tablespoon of our butter. I have about 2 tablespoons here. And then we're just gonna start to mash that up. If you don't have a potato masher, you can use a fork. And then I'm gonna add in a little bit of this potato water. You don't want to add too much because you don't want it to be soupy. Also with your chicken, if you don't have a thermometer, try not to cut into it because all that's going to do is release all of the juices from inside of it. So let it rest for a few minutes. And then kind of just make one small little cut in it. And if it still looks a little pink inside, then return it to the pan. But if you cut into it as it's cooking and don't let it rest for a few minutes, it's gonna go ahead and just lose all of those juices and you'll end up with a dry chicken breast. This is about the texture that I am looking for with my mashed potatoes. And so now I'm gonna like generously season them with salt and pepper. Season them however you like. And then give that another good stir. And then you can taste and you can adjust your flavors as needed. So my chicken should be done. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this. And I'm gonna let my meat rest. And then I'm gonna take this and I'm just gonna wipe the pan down. It does not need to be washed. So I wiped it down as best as I could. There was still a little bit of stuck on sugar from that bourbon brown sugar seasoning, but that's fine. It'll just add flavor to our sauce. So we're gonna add a little drizzle of oil. And then we are going to add our remaining tablespoon of butter. And then we are going to add our apples and just the scallion whites. And then we're gonna go ahead and add in a little bit of salt and pepper. And then we're just gonna give this all a good stir and kind of let some of that like deglaze the pan. Make sure your apple gets all broken up. And this is just gonna cook for about 5 minutes until the apples and whites are nice and soft. So my apples have started to like soften and started to caramelize a little bit. And so now I'm gonna add in my stock concentrate. And then a half a cup of water. And then a half a teaspoon of sugar. And we're just gonna let this all cook down for about another 5 minutes or so until a lot of that water has evaporated and the sauce has started to thicken. And then in the last couple minutes, we're gonna add our chicken back to the pan just to kind of toss it in the sauce. I'm gonna go ahead and add my chicken back to the pan. I'm gonna kind of nestle this in there and I'm gonna like flip it over a few times. Get it nice and coated. I'm even gonna add all that juice in there. And then to finish up my green beans, I'm gonna go ahead and take my lemon zest and sprinkle my lemon zest onto it and toss all these. If you don't want your green beans that roasted, you don't have to go that far. I like really roasted, almost kind of crunchy green beans sometimes. Just gonna toss that with the lemon zest. And let this continue cooking for just another minute. So this is all looking done to me. So you're gonna serve your chicken however you like. You can serve it whole, you can slice it. You're gonna serve it with your mashed potatoes, your green beans, and then your lemon wedge and chopped green onions as a garnish. And as always, I look forward to your presentation.